There's a huge interest in growing your own fruit at home, and fortunately there are a lot of fruit trees available either in local nurseries or by mail order. First thing to figure out, of course, is what kind of fruit tree you want. Are they apples, peaches, pears, plums, cherries? All of those interesting fruits that taste so good on the plate. Second thing to do is make sure you get those trees from a reliable source, and then look for the best quality tree you can. Locally, typically trees are available in a container. They may have come into the nursery a year before and been pruned properly and then potted up, which makes it a little bit easier for the homeowner to actually deal with them. A couple of things to look at, obviously, in choosing a good tree: always the root system. Make sure you have good healthy roots that are not circling. But then we start looking at the top of the tree. We want to take a look first at this peach, which really has kind of an odd shape and form. A couple of things going on. It has a really crooked trunk that is likely not to grow out of that. It also has a piece of a dead leader in it right here, which will need to be pruned off. It has been pruned sort of into a good canopy and a good shape, but in comparison to some of the other trees that are a little bit more uniform, this would probably not be my first choice of tree. If you look at the trees behind me, you can also see that we have trees that are already in flower. That's very typical for peaches, apricots, cherries to break bud quite early. And so if you think about why we prune once we have selected a good tree with a nice structural form, we prune first to remove dead and dying, which is typical for any tree that we're going to prune in the landscape. We then prune to open up the interior of the plant, because it's really important for fruiting trees to be able to get sunlight into the interior of the canopy. We then prune for structure, and that also is one of the things that can really be confusing to a homeowner, because we prune different types of trees differently for their fruiting capability. So what we also want to do once we've selected a tree, or as we're selecting it, is look at whether the original pruning has been done properly. What we're usually after, depending on the species, is either a strong central leader, which would be true of apples, or a wide set of scaffold branches that are whorled around the trunk of the tree. Again, we're after good spacing for good fruit production. We want to make sure that we have selected properly to begin with, and then we will prune over the lifetime of that plant to make sure that we are actually introducing sunlight, keeping the spacing wide enough for good air circulation, which also helps with pests and diseases, and allows us to get to that fruit so we can take that first luscious bite of that peach in the spring.